Here at GRE, we've had an investment counselor in-house for a while. So here to tell you who he is, how he helps you, and more, I'd like to welcome in Naresh Vissa.
Thanks a lot, Keith. Looking forward to having the discussion. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You're an experienced real estate investor yourself. So just tell us exactly how you do this and how you help our followers, whether you get on the phone or Zoom with the followers, and then how you help connect them with the markets and the properties and so on.
Well, let me first start with what you first started with, and that is I'm an experienced real estate investor. I'm not like as experienced as you, but I own 8 properties now in 4 different markets or 4 different states. So I've been involved in real estate investing since 2017. That's when I bought my first property, and I've learned a lot through the process. I've had some downs, I've had a lot of ups, I've made some mistakes, and a few years ago I said, you know what, I want to share my knowledge with the world, like kind of like you. I want to share my knowledge with the world, and I started coaching people. And so now, as you mentioned, I'm a real estate investment coach for Get Rich Education for GRE, and I help coach our listeners, people who are listening right now. I help coach them throughout and along their real estate investment journey. And the best part is we don't charge. GRE does not charge for this free service. Right. It's real estate investment coaching. So I highly recommend that people listening, if you don't know about this program yet, you can either email me directly, naresh@getricheducation.com. That's Naresh, naresh@getricheducation.com. Or I think we've sent out a few mailers if you're interested in the markets that I coach on. I mean, pretty much all of Alabama, Tennessee, like Memphis, Tennessee, all of Florida. We even have Wisconsin now. I've helped bring on new providers to provide inventory in Wisconsin, like Green Bay, Wisconsin, Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, Ohio, like Cleveland, Ohio, Canton, Ohio, Akron, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, South Bend, Indiana, Kansas City, Missouri, just a lot of new awesome inventory that we've gotten. So I'd love to share the inventory with our listeners and also help coach them throughout the process, whether it's financing, property management, negotiation, you name it.
Yeah, classically, those markets in the Midwest and South that have those high ratios of rent income in proportion to a low purchase price. So that's a lot of markets there. But of course, the problem has been this astounding dearth of inventory where, depending on what numbers you look at, we only have about 1/4 of the available housing supply that we need in the United States. But you were just letting me know earlier that there has been some more inventory that's come onto the market.
I should say inventory for Get Rich Education. Inventory as a whole for the United States is still a big problem.
Yeah.
But we were able to secure some partnerships with some providers and vendors and builders and flippers, wholesalers, you name it. And so we have a lot of, if you thought we didn't have much inventory at Get Rich Education before, multiply that by like 4 or 5. And I can tell you right now, as of this recording, we have over 50 properties available for sale. That's just how much inventory that we have, and all different types of inventory too. Previously, it was only new construction. Now we have new construction all over the country. We have cash only deals. We have short-term rental offers. We have overseas short-term rental type of offers. We have older properties that cash flow high. We have turnkey rehabs. We have as-is properties. So we have also, and then we also have multifamily. We have 4-plexes, 5-plexes. This is just a really, really surprisingly a good time if you're a GRE listener, because it's inventory galore and it's selling really fast too. You have to move so quickly because of just how hot the real estate market is.
Yeah, it has been hot. And, maybe we can talk about some reasons for buying, and you can give me some feedback as to the reasons for people that want to buy in this market. Now, I sure know that I have my reasons, and that it's that one investment vehicle that pays me up to 5 ways at the same time. But I guess what I'm getting at, Naresh, is if, you have the person that wants to buy property just because they heard their friend made a lot of money in real estate and they're all excited and they don't really have much foundational knowledge. I think something like that plays plays into FOMO, fear of missing out, and speculation. Or, maybe someone's in a rush to buy because they hear, well, I just think interest rates are going to go higher and prices are going to go higher. And while both those things probably are true and very well could be true, that's maybe a somewhat better reason than doing it because your buddy did it. But that kind of plays into more fear of missing out and speculation again. I mean, I really like to hear someone wants to buy property today for reasons like, well, for example, they know that they can still borrow at an interest rate that's substantially lower than inflation and exploit that delta and that arbitrage, or they know about the inflation triple crown, or that real estate pays 5 ways, and they've kind of got that longer term perspective on it that's not quite as emotional. Those are kind of the things I like to hear. So just kind of with that context, you want to talk to us some more about why people are buying properties like crazy today?
Yeah, well, first off, I don't want to repeat all the reasons that you've shared multiple times in the past in your YouTube videos, your YouTube channel, previous podcasts. I want to talk more about maybe some newer, novel reasons of why people are investing or why you should invest. And by you, I mean the listener, not you personally, Keith, because I know you are a very active investor. So the first thing that's not talked about enough is Wall Street. Wall Street has become the biggest landlord in the world. And Wall Street is essentially propping up the real estate market. And it doesn't look like they're showing any signs of pulling back, of selling to each other, because they're probably going to have to sell it to each other if they do pull back. They're not going to sell it to a mom and pop investor like me because they own so much. And so as long as Wall Street is going to, when I say Wall Street, the firm that's the biggest landlord is the Blackstone Group, which is a huge private equity firm. But you also have the big banks who have in-house mortgage lending units or departments. So big banks, real estate private equity firms, real estate hedge funds. One of our providers we just brought on in Alabama, they have great relationships with these real estate hedge funds that just go in and buy 50 properties minimum at a time. So you can see why the housing market is continuing to prop up, and what the average person doesn't know is that Wall Street is heavily behind this. So this does mean if Wall Street one day wakes up and says, hey, you know what, we're just going to unload everything. Like I said, they're not showing any signs of doing that. But if they did do that, then you would see a flood of inventory come on the market, and yeah, then we could expect prices to go down. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. The latest inflation statistics showed that 9%. We're looking at a 9% inflation rate right now. A 30-year, and like I said, I coach people, the GRE listeners. I help them with financing right now as we speak. You're looking at, if you want a 30-year fixed rate, 20% down mortgage, we're looking at 5.5%. That's really the best that you're going to get, 5.5%. I won't be surprised if by the time this episode airs or a few weeks after, if that goes up to closer to 6%, because the Fed is raising rates rapidly.
Yes, we did.
The free market, the rates are going up. But still, you're beating inflation, borrowing at a 6% interest rate compared to the 9% inflation rate.
That's another way to think about it.
So it's still a really, really good time to get access to capital, to borrow. Another reason, which you may have not talked about, but I think this should be talked about, another common question I get from students or from listeners is, should I create an LLC? Should I buy a property and put it in an LLC, or should I have one LLC and put a bunch of properties in it? Look, regardless, the government has tried to help people, tried to help investors, real estate investors, has tried to help small business owners since 2008, really, since that financial crisis. And one program that the government came out with is this EIDL program, the Economic Disaster Relief Program, where they just gave people free money. So if you had real estate in an LLC, they just gave you, all you had to do was provide your LLC documentation, your latest tax return, and they just gave you free money. They just transferred it to your bank account, and they say you don't even need to pay it back. This was in 2020. Now this year, 2022, they've expanded that program, and they are offering SBA loans as a part of this EIDL at a 3.75% interest rate. So I actually personally, I'll share this. I got a $50,000 loan at a 3.75% interest rate on my LLC that houses a bunch of properties.
Great.
And that's, again, inflation's at 9%. And that right there is, I could use that on a down payment to buy a property, a new construction property. I can do whatever I want with it. So here's another example of how you can just use your business savvy to acquire real estate, to earn appreciation, to get cash flow, and to take advantage of programs that just might pop up every few years where they're just handing away free money or giving out super low interest loans.
Oh, you touched on an awful lot there, including some good actionable tips. Yeah, when it comes to the inflation piece, we've had CPI being reported quite high, 8% or more. A lot of people that really look at the way that that's calculated often say, oh, wait a second, look at the way that they were calculating it in the 1980s and how that's changed from then till now and how they've changed the basket of goods so that they can report a lower rate of inflation. And a lot of economists come up with some sort of consensus that the real diminished purchasing power of the dollar could very well be something more like 15%. The more you research this, the more you're willing to believe a number like that. Well, if real inflation is 15%, and that's been about the appreciation rate of properties lately, then is real estate even highly priced at all? Or has it just been keeping up with inflation?
Compared to what, right? It's people are always going to compare things. So they're going to look at real estate. They're going to look at a piece of property today and say, oh, compared to 3 years ago, this is 100% greater. This is 100% of the purchase price 3 years ago. And mentally, they're going to say, oh, it's expensive. I missed out. You don't want to fall into that trap, I don't think, because I don't think the real estate market is going to crash. So many people are like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the crash. They told me that or I used to be one of those people in 2013, 2014. They said that in 2020. Now we're in 2022 and they've missed out, like I said, on 60% appreciation. Look, the fundamentals, we talked about Wall Street, they're still very much in place. Do I think the real estate market will eventually cool? Absolutely. I don't think it will cool this year because of the geopolitical issues, because of the labor shortage, because of the supply chain crisis, because of just the demand for more housing, the number of people immigrating to the United States. We're still seeing a lot of immigrants. We're seeing refugees. We're seeing illegals. They all need housing. So the fundamentals are still very, very much there. I'm still bullish on real estate. I think rent's going to continue to go up. So even if real estate values go up, is rent keeping up? Yes, it is. It absolutely still is. If you look at the numbers, rents continue to go up, and I don't think rents will go down. Really, maybe ever in our lifetimes. The rents are only going to continue to go up as more renters or as more people get priced out of the real estate market. I know people with very good jobs who make six figures in income, and they said, I'm priced out of this market because the type of house that I want, it's going to take me another 3-4 years to save up for the down payment and to purchase that type of house. Whereas 3 years ago, I could have afforded it. So those people are now renters too. And they're renting, new construction homes or nicer homes. So everybody needs a place to live at the end of the day. And I love real estate. I'm very pro real estate. The tax benefits are amazing. The appreciation is great. The cash flow is great. There are just very few pitfalls there are some pitfalls with real estate. And I coach people through that, especially if you buy an older property in a place like a Cleveland, Ohio, or a Memphis, Tennessee. You have to understand why the cash flow looks so high on paper. If you understand that, then you'll be ready for the surprises.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about those surprises, because a lot of people, especially early investors or newer investors, which are the ones that you most often deal with because they do have the most questions. And just tell us about some of those pitfalls. We know about the upsides.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. If you're a new investor and you want a smooth, seamless process or a smooth, seamless experience, and you have the capital, I would recommend a new construction property in an A class neighborhood. And we have plenty of those in Alabama and Florida. That's what I would recommend. If you're let's say a younger investor who has the money, but who is willing to take on a little more risk in the sense of maybe some evictions here and there, maybe some bad tenants, but the reward is if you don't have to deal with that, then you're getting very high cash flow, very, very high cash flow. And these are kind of your Section 8 housing. These are your B- type of properties, your C+. When I say B-, I mean B- neighborhoods, C+ type of neighborhoods. And look, I own some new construction that are in A quality neighborhoods, but I also own some older properties that were built in the 90s that are in not so good neighborhoods that have performed extremely well. Or maybe I had to do one big rehab and upgrade some things and put a higher quality tenant in there, and I didn't have problems ever since. So, some of these problems include your tenants losing their jobs. So like, I had a tenant who worked at a hotel, and I bought this property in 2017, and the tenant worked at a hotel. Initially, when they came in as a tenant, I thought, a hotel job is pretty stable. Like, it's hard to get fired from a hotel. Well, pandemic comes, and a bunch of hotel workers in 2020 were laid off or furloughed or whatever. And this tenant, I had to end up evicting because they couldn't pay their rent. And look, that's just a part of the process. You go through the evict, and the property manager handles all that. Somebody listening might be like, "Oh, how do you?" I live in Florida. This property was in Memphis, Tennessee. No, I didn't fly over there and go after the tenant or anything.
Right.
I help coach people through the process so they don't even have to worry about this. Yeah, they're going to have to spend some money, but you hire a good property manager, and they take care of everything for you, and then you rehab the place. You put in some fixtures, make it look nice, and bring in a newer, higher quality tenant who you can stick in there and who is going to pay the rent and who is going to treat the property better. So those are some examples of some of the pitfalls that you're going to face when it comes to these older, high cash flowing homes. But look, many people. I know some Section 8 only investors who are like, I love Section 8. Like, I want only Section 8 tenants because the rent is guaranteed, and my tenants just happen to work out pretty well. And I know other people who said, no more Section 8. I want to improve my property and get a higher quality tenant in there. So it just really depends. I've got a mixture of both, like I said, and I recommend if you're just starting out, if you're risk averse, stick with the newer constructions or the newer properties that are fully turnkey and rehabbed.
All right, that could be a good piece of advice. A new construction property, you're not going to have to run into rehab problems, and oftentimes you can attract a better quality tenant as well. And we talk about that rent income increasing, and rents are, what some call downside sticky. Rents rarely go down. Even during the mortgage meltdown and housing crisis of about 2007 to 2010, my rents didn't go down, even though we were in a substantial recession. And then when you talk about the appreciation piece, we probably had something like 18 to 20% appreciation last year. At the end of last year, talking about this year, really making a prediction, I thought that appreciation would be about half of that, 9 to 10%. And so far here in Q2, I like how that's holding up. And the reason I think that appreciation will continue but slow is at some point we're going to have an affordability constraint. It's not really supply. It's not a glut of supply getting dumped on the market. I think that's really difficult to do. I don't see a BlackRock or anyone doing that. I don't see things getting constructed too quickly. It's a fairly inelastic condition with the supply. So it's really that affordability constraint, though I do continue to see appreciation, albeit just more slowly now. So before I ask you if you have any last things to tell our audience, since a lot of them are going to be working directly with you on a phone call or a Zoom call as you help them out, if you want to connect, you can do that at gremarketplace.com. Hopefully you've set up a login over there now, where one login gives you access to all of our providers. Again, his services are are free. He's not working with all of our providers over there, but he is working with an increasing number of them. So anything a prospective buyer ought to know in this market today?
Yeah, well, like I said, the good news is we brought on some new partnerships, new providers, and we have something for everybody. Previously, it was just somewhat high price new constructions. Now we have, like I'm looking at our list of inventory right now, we have a new construction in Memphis, Tennessee, brand new. It's going to be complete next month, and it's selling for $153,000. I mean, there are people who said, you know, I want a new construction, I want this, I want that, but I only have this much amount in down payment.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know what, right now we just can't help you because that's not what the market's dictating. But we're finding those partners, we're finding those opportunities where we have something for everybody. We have properties for as low as $83,000 in this market. We have a property in Akron, Ohio for $83,000, and it has a very, very high ROI, but you can probably guess why on paper it looks really good. Once you look at the pictures, you do some research on the neighborhood, then you'll probably, and it's also not fully rehabbed. You'll understand why it is priced that low. But hey, there are some people, I talked to one guy who said, you know what, I'm okay maybe purchasing that and putting in $15,000 in renovation and rehab, and then putting a tenant in. To me, it's still worth it if we can get this rent, which, yeah, I think absolutely the rent that's listed is absolutely attainable. So the point that I'm making is we have properties, all types of properties for everybody. Like I mentioned in the beginning, short-term rentals, fourplexes, fiveplexes, new constructions, older properties, Missouri, Indiana, Florida. I'll say this, Florida is the hotspot. Most of our calls coming in right now, coming in to me are, I want Florida. I either want a vacation home in Florida, or I want a short-term rental in Florida, or I want a rental property in Florida, or I just want to meet the governor of Florida because I love him so much. It is just, Florida is number one right now. That's like the hottest state that we're getting interest in.
Well, Naresh, this has been really helpful. You're surely giving people a lot of ideas about markets, properties, and you're kind of giving people a reminder that oftentimes it's about the connections that you have in finding the right property in a market like this. And oftentimes it's about understanding what's going on behind the numbers, and that's something that you help them with. So it's been quite valuable. Naresh, it's been great having you here. Thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Thanks a lot, Keith. Always a pleasure.